Lighting design to bring in ideas. For example, this first exercise we're going to do has music in it. So introducing the students to composers, to genres of music, those kind of things are cross sort of pollinating these, what's behind these three little lesson plans we're going to give you. We put the lesson plans online for you. So if you either want to follow along now or look at them later, it's studioschoolofdesign.org/DOE. And in each lesson plan, we lay out what the materials are, what we think is a time frame for them, what the outcomes are, and so on. And we invite you to take a look at those and see what's useful for you in your classroom. So just to get us started this morning, we're all creative people here, so we're going to do a little exercise. This one is what we call the design process. It involves music and chalk and black paper. So somebody in the back row there could just pass around the bag of chalk, and everybody take one piece of black paper. Normally we do this exercise with 4 songs. We're going to truncate it to 2 songs this morning, but you can expand it to however much you want. And you don't have to use music. You could use a poem. You could use a video of a dance piece with the sound turned off so that they're just looking at the movement. I would stay away from a text because part of what we want to do is begin to associate visual symbols abstractly with non-verbal communication. So as soon as the chalk and the paper is out, we're going to play 2 selections of music. I want you to just draw what comes into your mind immediately. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. There's no portfolio. There's no grading. You don't want to, become too worried about what you're putting on the paper. It's just what you feel, what you hear, how do those relate. And we'll do 2 sections, as I said, and then we will take a brief moment to talk about it. So how are we doing on the paper? We'll use both sides of the paper. Somebody got black paper and chalk? Okay, here's black paper and yes. Is it coming around? There should be enough back there. Is there more back there that pass around on the table? Yeah.
Anybody else?
All good?
Good.
Okay, so each section is just about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long. I'll probably cut them short a little bit today just to get you the flavor of how this is going to work. So just remember, just draw what you feel. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Don't go, oh, does this make sense? Is this a pretty drawing? Any of that. Just go for it. Okay, here we go. Okay, finish up what you're drawing. Carefully flip it over so you don't get it on your pants. And we'll go on to the next selection.
We have more paper if you.
Yeah,
Because of that gas problem.
If you need more paper,
Yeah.
sweet.
Oh, yeah. No, it's just about the.
Okay, here we go. So, here we go. Okay, finish that up. So let's hold them up. Let's see what you got. Look around the room. Look for where there's similarities. Where did the music, this is all number one. Everybody's holding up the first selection, right? So where do you see things that look the same? Where's imagery that has crossover between individuals? I see, which side is that the number one side we're looking at? Yeah. Look at squiggles, we've got squiggles over here. We have a house, a horse, we have some, is that a boat? In the back, two boats. Okay, they're not even sitting close enough to cheat, and there's two boats right
What
there.
about this kind of field at the top? You have that kind of that. and
Yeah.
Your neighbor does too.
Right? So what you're seeing is this, and yeah, I love this. You got a raft there in the water. There's a lot of water imagery from that first one, right? So even people on opposite sides of the room are responding visually in a similar way. There's an undercurrent of a language there that we start to understand that's abstract. Let's flip it over and look at the other side. Probably a little bit more sharper images, right? We've got a horn, yeah, here, we have two trees, a house again, another house, lots of sharper lines, right? More staccato feelings, more harsh mood than the first one. I love this round. Do we have anybody that also did a round one? Yeah, look at that. And then also, look at that squiggle back there, and hold yours up so we can see, almost identical.
Wow.
And then also, there's some connection between this and that.
Yeah. So there's all this in our heads, in our beings. What you've just done is what a designer does with light. We take this exterior stimulus. It could be a play, it could be a dance, an opera, a pop concert, and we put it through our own DNA, through our experiences, through our point of view. We put it down on paper, which in our case is a light plot, and then we visualize it for an audience. everything you've just done. So step by step, you're able to talk to students through how to respond, to create, and to show their work as a lighting designer without any lights at all. And set designers do it, costume designers do it as well. It's not just lighting designers, but it is the arc of the design process. And it's really kind of an important place to start with the students to get them thinking, oh, it's not just I walk up and turn a light on and off. The selections are on the website if you'd like them. One was Florence Price. She was a black composer in the last century, and she was one of the first female composers to have work done by major symphonies around the world. The other one was a Brazilian composer, Heitor Villa-Lopez, and he's considered the most influential classical Brazilian composer of the last century. I also like to use like one pop song with words, because then the students start to draw real objects. And then you can talk about what's the difference between when you heard somebody singing about love or loss or whatever, and how that translates onto the page. And then I try and pick jazz or something that's really out there, that, electronic music, that they can have a whole arc of an experience there. So I hope that sort of breaks the ice a little bit. It's just something you can do 5 to 10 minutes into the class. And then the other thing I want to just touch on so that we have kind of a common vocabulary when Clifton starts the next demo, is what we call the qualities of light. And I'm sorry you're stuck behind us there. But normally I would try and pull this out of the group, but I'm just going to go through them really quickly here. So we have intensity, angle, color, form, now some people also call it distribution, and then kinetic movement and rhythm. And these kind of come under the big heading of movement. The kinetic movement is important because now with all the computerized lighting that we have, we can actually do moving lights. We can talk about things, light that has action to it. And rhythm is when we talk about where does the cue go? How long is the cue? What's the sequence of cues? And why do they come close together? Why do we spread them apart? Why is one 1 second and why is one 30 seconds long? Today, we're going to focus on angle and color. And Clifton's going to start with a demo of angle.
Yeah. Cool. We like to start talking about angle. It's the most impactful tool that we have, I think. It's the kind of primary tool in lighting design to decide what the angle is. And the other thing I wanted to say, in terms of teaching in classrooms, this is on purpose, these clip lights. And it's so that you can kind of demystify the stage lighting, all the techiness of stage lighting. Just get some clip lights, and these are like little $15 dimmers. And you can just do it in your classroom, so that you're talking about light and not talking about all the technology. It's really important to separate that, because we all have different levels of technology in our schools, and also different comfort levels. Is everyone here a theater teacher? Are some people teaching English and then you're given the theater job, or everyone's a theater teacher? Is anyone a technical theater teacher here? Sorry. Awesome.
I teach stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. But it's variable, right? For the non-technical teachers, what's your specialty? Is it acting, singing?
Performance.
Yeah. Any choreographers in the room? Nice. Okay, so a lot of variety here that comes under this like theater teacher, right? And you all know this more than we do. So the low techness of it is important to the whole thing because it's accessible to everybody. Could we kill the lights in the room? Could someone get this? Maybe Kelly? And I'm going to kill all these. Also, I will say these things are kind of harder to get these days because all that, this like hard to get incandescent lights. So just a little vocabulary. What is that?
Sidelight?
Sidelight. I start with it because it's the most important thing for us. Under thought of. So for the choreographer, right, you think about sidelight. But maybe for the theater teachers, it's not so, we don't think of it first. Mark, would you be my partner for a second? Maybe stand here. Just stand here, my same partner. Oh, okay. So, problem with sidelight is that, right? Right? But the way we correct that is we just lift up the sidelight so that my shadow falls below his face. So a theater sidelight will just tend to be higher. Still sidelight though, super important to us. Why is it important? Because it reveals form. So the three-dimensionality of my face is all because it's sidelight. As we move around to the front. Thank you. So as we move around to the front, see how the three-dimensionality of my face goes away. Now you're just seeing the shape, which is important, but not as interesting as when we come around to the side. So light as a storytelling medium becomes much more interesting off of the sides. If you come around the back, what's some feelings you get from that? Foreboding, right? Mystery, menace. It's a good word. Anything else?
Shame.
Shame.
Curiosity. Makes me want to know more.
It makes you want to know, bring you into it, right?
Command, power.
Oh, power, because I'm outlined. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great words. And then there's downlight. In my university program, I don't let them use downlight. Because they'll go to it. It always seems like a thing to go to. What do you have some feelings about this downlight? I want you to be really down.
Doesn't give you any information, like,
Right.
down here.
It's not as good as people expect it to be. They
Makes my
think-
nose, right?
Yeah.
Pops my nose out. Not so interesting.
No, it's like that, like, it's like the, I'm doing an open mic and I'm like on stage, like doing stuff.
Yeah. But look now, if I could just, if you stay there, Mark, and follow me. If I could just shift it like this,
Yeah.
see what happens to that. Suddenly, there's something that lighting designers will talk about, which is slightly different, but this gives it a point of view. Now, there's something about this space that's not neutral. It now has, there's a kind of power side, and there's a, what was the word, some of the words used for backlight?
Ominous, foreboding.
Right, so now, just by making it a slight sidelight, there's this, which is kind of this, I have social power, or I could turn away from the light. See how that point of view, just giving it that slight angle? Thank you. There's also sidelight. So there's sidelight here, maybe bring it to the floor. And then there's low sidelight. Also super common in dance. Why is it common in dance? Why do we like this?
See their legs.
See their legs, yeah, emphasizes feet maybe.
Bring shadows.
Yeah, I mean, the shadows are, I think, somewhat unnatural. You know, it's not a kind of light that we see in normal life. I think there's a technical reason, which is that with a light that has shutters in it, I can control the source and I can cut off the floor.
Okay.
So all this discussion now has been about lighting the figure, but the figure is existing in an environment. So,
Can I ask you a quick question?
of course, please.
I'm playing around with, I have ancestors in my show, and so we wanted to do some from the floor lighting and foot lighting to look more like they're, ghosts or
Yeah,
from the past.
something unnatural.
Yes, would you put it in front or to the side more?
You know, it a little bit depends on, yeah, so here's a front light. So you have to consider that though also, like where are you gonna hide the shadow? So that's a consideration.
Or maybe the shadow becomes an important part of the composition too.
Right?
You know, it might be part of the storytelling that the shadow exists.
Right, because there's always a figure and then there's a space, so there's a human being and then there's the environment in which they're interacting. And we're, kind of always weighing those two things. The other thing about footlights, besides being a kind of ghostly light or something like that, it's a good way to cue an audience that we're on a stage. Most audiences understand what footlights are. It's somewhere in our theater-going memory of vaudeville and 20th century light, 19th century, 18th century light. So we can use footlights to kind of say, oh, we're on a stage if we're doing Gypsy. And, when she's on stage, you can turn on the footlights and everyone knows, oh, we're not in a book scene anymore where she's on stage. So we can use it to kind of talk about theater history as well. Great. One thing that I've learned, downlights are downlight. This is for technical theater teachers in the room. Everything's a downlight until we get past 30 degrees. So 30 degrees is a kind of magic angle to define something as these words that we're calling it. So side light, we have to get past 30, and then once we're past 30, then it becomes a side light. Anything up here just is a downlight. I will say that downlights are good for one great thing, which is defining a virtual space. So if I have an area on stage that I want to be separated from that, these two characters are in separate theatrical worlds. A downlight can help define the space because we're defining a floor space. And then I can separate these two characters. And then, so that's really lighting the floor. And then separately I can light the actor. Does that all make sense? This first light that we turn on is called a key light. And for those of you who've done some video work, you'll hear that word. In video, they tend to have very specific rules about where the key light can go. In the theater, the key light can go anywhere. It's a storytelling light. So, is the light, put that in, what's the story? Is that the light coming in through the window? It's coming in through the window. Is this the car headlights sweeping by? Is that the light over the kitchen table? Storytelling light. The light that you want to teach the audience where we are in real space. That's a key light. It's the first light that we turn on when we're creating a cue. What's the story that we want to connect to this light? So we must turn it on first. Could I have the room lights for a second? When we're in this kind of space, where's the light coming from? Coming from all over, right? So most of our time we're living in this kind of fill light, where there really isn't an angle. So think of the sky as this big dome of blue, and the light's coming from everywhere. But then, that's really, so on top of the fill light then, there's a sun. So the key of the sun, and then the fill everywhere else. In the theater, we can't do that, right? Like, we have this problem, so we still just have spotlights. So if you, Kelly, could you turn off the lights again? And I wonder if someone else could be a volunteer. Would you like to be a volunteer? So let's do it. So if I'm trying to say that's the sum, and go up high if you need it, and come to the front a little bit. And go to 0 with the dimmer. Yeah, okay. So key lighted full, and we start there. That's our storytelling light, that's sunlight. And then the fill light is going to fill in the shadows that are caused by the key. That's the definition of a fill light. It fills in the shadows caused by the key. So this side, shadows on this side. So now roll this up slowly from 0. And before you do it, I want everybody to say stop when it's giving you enough information on this side of my face, but not taking over this light. Okay? So go ahead.
Stop.
So that action of key lighted full, and then we roll the fill light in from the bottom, that's the thing that we do every single time. Because if you start with the fill light, could you turn both off for a second? So start with the fill light. So if we turn that on first, like, oh, turn on the front light so we can see all the actors. And keep going. Is that all the way up? Okay, great. And then add the, and so now I'm fighting because I can never make this bright enough. So I must start with the key light.
And that gets more crucial if you were to move this direction. It becomes more dominant, and this becomes less effective. So if you start there and go to here, we don't have any contrast. And we understand meaning through contrast. That's how we see and take in our visual world. So how much contrast you put into a composition is critical.
Yeah.
But you can't do it if you start with fill. You have to start here, tip yours down for a moment, and then run the dimmer down to, and come back up. Stop around there. Yeah?
Also what this does is sometimes you'll be building a stage composition and you'll be like, oh, it's not bright enough to tell the story. And if you've started the other way, you're always protecting the brightness possibility of this light. And then you're going to fill in from the bottom. And then it almost doesn't matter how bright it is because that won't be blown over to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Super important concept is key and flow. Let's do the backlight. So let's do the same thing. So start at 0. Yeah, and right. And that's at full?
Yeah.
Maybe you could do it so it's focused down more so it's not in people's eyes. Okay, and then you can decide on the key light, on the fill light.
Like what angle?
It almost doesn't matter, I'm just gonna fill in these shadows. And again, say stop.
Stop.
Doesn't make much,
Right,
does it?
maybe they go down more. No, level wise here,
Oh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
So you can use it just to give the in-audiences information. But this action of starting with the key, wherever the key is, and then adding fill afterwards, will make your stage composition so much better. Any questions about this? Good. Is that new information?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's more details about the lesson for angle on this website that we created for you.
Yeah.
You can dig into it more deeply.
Yeah, could I have the hot room lens for a second? So there's learning activities with the lesson, which is to give students prompts. And so they don't even have to be from a play, you can just give them a realistic space. And say, oh, let's create this scenario, say, light coming in the morning on a kitchen table. And so you start with words and let them connect those words to, setting up real lights. And I really suggest using lights that you can have in the classroom, so it doesn't get all techy. That's really is our enemy, to have too much technology involved when you're talking about design. Because it just gets them involved in all this stuff. Who cares? It's still just light. After you talk about the just word prompts, another thing you can do is take a play script and say, here's a scene, and where they derive the setup from the words that the actors say to each other. So take away the stage directions and let them come up with, invent a space. But again, really emphasizing this key-fill relationship. You could do it with music, like replaying Mark's exercise again. And so even in an abstract dance work, it's kind of a higher level of thinking, which is, okay, what's our key fill when we're not tied to a real space? There's still a key fill relationship, even in an abstract dance.
I was going to say, another way to come at this is looking at paintings and using the painting as the prompt. So if it could be abstract or realistic, but easier to start with realism, and they discuss the light that's in the painting, and then with clip lights recreate that painting light in a very minimal space, a table, chair, a doorway, whatever.
Sorry if this is really obvious, but so when you're doing a play, it's most likely like you might have a different key light each scene.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And then track the key light through the play to see, oh, does that make sense?
Right.
It's really easy with someone like Tennessee Williams, because he was thinking about that key light travel through the play. Mm-hmm. Other playwrights, sometimes they think about it, sometimes they don't when they're writing it. But it's a reason why Tennessee Williams is still useful to us, especially in lighting design, because the plays are constructed to do that. The painting recreation thing is also on the website. That's so great. You give them a painting and they set up the diorama and get those shadows right and get the key fill relationship correct. Cool. Any other questions before we move on and talk about color a little bit? I sent Peter, I don't know, did you guys get a paper from us in your packet?
That was like a digital thing.
It was a digital thing, okay. I made like a one sheet, we made like a one sheet for today, and it's like tips and tricks for more effective stage lighting. So I just want to go over those for a second. It's in there.
Oh,
Great.
So,
If you have side lights make the best key. In most of our life, side light is a go-to thing. And again, if you have two actors on stage, the problem with side light is that they shadow each other. If you can get it up higher, then the shadow will fall over. Start with side lights, sculpt your performers on stage. Second thing, if you've turned the side lights on, at least make them asymmetrical. This is true in a modern dance work. Don't make the two sides the same way. It will put us into a natural space if one side is a key and the other side is a secondary light, even in an abstract space. Third thing is light your scenery. As soon as you're done with your key light your scenery. So get the level of the scenery right. So that might be a site. And so we're gonna go through that talking. So if we have a key light, and Kelly, if you could kill the lights again. Sorry, you're doing great. Thank you so much. So key lights on, haven't thought about a fill light yet, we don't care about that yet, just the storytelling lights on. Then we turn on the scenery. And then we can add the fill light. Do you still have the lights? Okay. This group here.
But the scenery, we're doing.
No,
Okay.
yeah, again, it's from, I might have turned it off. Yeah. Right. And then the last thing, I don't know, is to, if you have backlight, you might need to separate the performers from the scenery. Backlight is also great for coloring the floor. And the reason it's great for color, so it puts a light on me here, but also I can control the way the stage floor looks with backlight. And that's because then the floor acts as a kind of mirror, it goes right into the audience's eyes, and it will be the strongest way to light the floor. It will take over the front light color.
And one of the reasons Clifton is tough on his students when they do this to color the floor is because it also colors the performer's head, shoulders, nose. I mean, imagine if this was a deep red light, which we get into color in a moment. Now all of a sudden, Clifton's a different character in the play than
If you can get it just to be backlight,
the
then,
backlight's just an edge.
yeah.
It's not coloring the face, it's not creating big shadows in the eyes.
Could you say that again?
No, I'm just saying, I have these lights, I bought these, and I was like, okay, I can teach them lighting with this. I was like, this is not gonna work, and this is 4 friggin' lights.
Exactly. Yeah, and it actually is more effective because it's all in your hand.
Yeah,
You know, than trying to just go to the theater or setting up a lab. It's just in your classroom in your dark. So easy. Great.
Ask a question about lighting the scenery when you don't have, when most of us work in like auditoriums and these like strip lights that come down, or like maybe you've got a rack of those like ones that they have at Burmese. You know what I mean? Like the ones that like are the different colored LEDs.
Yes.
But like, or and a follow spot. So like if you don't have the angle, unless it's the follow spot to actually point at the scenery,
Yeah.
what would your recommendation be?
Well, I think all of you should be advocating for more sidelight in your rep plots. You know, whatever is in your theater, try and get them to give you more sidelight possibilities. It's the most important thing. And usually it's the last thing that people think about, but it actually is the most important thing. So once you have sidelight, then you can light the scenery with that as well. Like if you have flats. So whatever is the key light on the actors, ideally we would have another expression onto scenery as well, that's saying the key angle. So you could do key fill relationship on the scenery as well. Here I just lit like a side behind this. If you can get the lights on the floor, it's more effective than the lights overhead.
Yeah.
Super hard, I know, in most situations. But the reason we like sight lights on the floor versus overhead is it keeps your eyes down, keeps the audience looking where the performers are.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's up here, it's like, why is there this strip of blue up there? You know, it just takes your eye up to exactly where you don't want the audience to look. So if I only had one row of sight lights, I would put it on the floor if I could. And I know this is super challenging in school theaters. The strip light question, if you have strip lights overhead, I would try and get them to focus them to be more backlight than downlight.
Yeah, we understand that as a
Yeah.
problem.
They're like stationary.
Yeah.
But we do want to think in terms of zones. So every lighting designer thinks of a foreground, a middleground, and a background. And at the very minimum, if you can divide your stage up into those thought processes of where the light is going to land, it's going to help you give depth, it's going to help you separate actors from backdrops, it's going to give you more compositional possibilities to think foreground, middleground, background, in terms of controlling the light that you can control.
So I want to talk a little bit about color. So all of that angle stuff, look at the lesson plan online and look at the lesson plans, because I think all this would expand out and be much more talking. The color talk. Who's tried to teach your students color theory? Where did you start?
I mean, my kids, I do it in third grade, so we have little shoebox dioramas, just like flashlights, and I cut up little photographer gels.
It's amazing.
And I let them like mix, like what do you notice? But because my art teacher teaches the color wheel,
Yeah.
so I kind of piggyback off of what she did the hard work. She explained complementary colors and all that stuff.
That's so
And I just let
amazing.
them experiment.
I love that.
Adding on to that, like I do a similar thing, but I give them M&Ms or Skittles, and so they look at them like
Ooh.
with different color gels and like how it affects.
Oh, I
the
like
colors
that. Oh, I'm
and
gonna steal that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then they have a snack afterwards.
I like that.
Little sugar reward.
Ooh, thank you.
And with that trick, it's like the biggest tricks are when you go with the primaries, when you use like the red and the green and the blue, and it gets harder and harder to sort, so they understand that like if you try to play like a red costume with a red light, it just is gonna disappear. And then you look at the other color wheel, it just confuses kids.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad her. She teaches that. I'll have to do that.
So I think most people start with talking about primary colors. I actually think it's a little bit disruptive to do that. It's not so useful for us because it's rare that in the theater we use primary colors. It just doesn't come up that often that we have green light unless we're doing Wicked. So, it's like we talk about primary colors and then never use it. So lately I've been thinking, why do we even introduce this in the beginning? Let's just skip that part. And so I think a much more useful place to start is to think any two colors have a dominant and a recessive relationship. So if the art teachers were in the room, Joseph Albers talks about color and paint, and he says there are advancing colors and receding colors. But that's true for lighting as well. So has anybody heard this concept before about advancing and receding colors? What are some examples of advancing colors? Lisa, you were shaking your head yes.
Oh, well, like bright pops of color, like red, might advance. It depends on what's next to it, I guess, like,
It always depends on what's next to it, for sure.
so.
So the classic examples of lighting are amber is a dominant color. Okay, so red, amber. Blue is a recessive color. This has everything to do with like the evolution of our vision system. So you think about this big sky dome, so it's a recessive color. Our vision system has evolved to kind of ignore that color. Like, who cares, blue sky, The classical Japanese didn't even have a word for that color. Just all blues and greens were just one word until the modern era. So we could just ignore it. So it's a recessive color, it has to do with the evolution of our vision system. Something like amber is a dominant color. It's important that we see it, like skin tones. Some human females have a fourth color detecting cone that actually is amber. And most humans just can detect red, green, and blue, but some females can detect a fourth color, and that's called tetrachromaticity. So 4, tetra is 4. Most people have trichromats. And it's thought so that they can see jaundice in babies, that evolutionary mutation. But amber is super important to us to to discover health, to see things against a blue background. The amber animals walking against the blue sky, and we can see that. Oh, that's our dinner tonight. So I want to show, this is going to be a little bit trickier. We can just hold up, hold an amber. There's a blue. So we'll just, we were just building this for you guys want to make some sound.
Yeah, I get a lot of it. Where do you get?
Oh, yeah.
But you can get them at they got like hot, so it was like I started using flashlights instead.
So if you, maybe I could have 2 more volunteers. Will you try this against the wall? And put the blue onto and Kelly, could you kill those lights? So just be front right on Mark. So what we've done here is put the amber is the scenery light, and the blue is the figure light. And what I want to propose is that the figure is being pushed back into the scenery. And even if we put a brighter blue, hold that there. So less dense blue. Okay, so now everyone close your eyes. And for the demonstrator, switch your focuses. So you go on the wall. And don't hit mark. Okay, you can open your eyes.
Oh, wow.
So you think about amber light and think about blue light. They're just wavelengths in this visible spectrum. But our eyes have evolved to assign amber to be much more important to us. So our brain picks up amber and says, oh, that's important, right? It's not just because it's brighter or it's none of those things. It's just a different wavelength. So scientifically they're the same. It's just our system has evolved to say amber is more important. So we can use that now as theater lighting designers if we want to create depth on stage. So Mark mentioned before, if we want to set up background, middle ground, and foreground, we can use recessive colors in the background and dominant colors in the foreground to increase our sense of depth on stage. That's where I think we should start talking about color, because now that's a very useful discussion, very actionable discussion for us as theatrical lighting designers. We can get to the primary stuff later. Doesn't matter so much to us right now. Let's switch it again. See how impactful that is? So now I want to do it not just with scenery on this. Thank you so much, Felicia. I want you to stay though. Would you come around and be more of a front light on Mark? Yeah. Maybe stand in the aisle and go up as high as you can reach. Sorry that it's standing kind of.
Sorry.
Yeah. And just focus it down so you're letting, yeah. Okay, so now this is also true just in lighting the figure. So look at this backlight, frontlight relationship. Okay, and close your eyes and we're gonna swap. Sorry, I'm gonna swing this around or step over the camera. Okay, look. Now you see how the backlight isn't as effective this way, right? And this is all about this kind of dominant recessive relationship. So that the dominant color will help push the figure forward, whereas by putting the dominant color in the front now, the recessive color isn't really helping us. So any two colors can have this relationship. Thank you. We have the house lights.
And depending on how complex you want to get with your class, this is not just about hue, it's not just about the color wheel itself, but it's also about saturation, color, density of color, how much chroma. So there is a dominant and recessive within saturation as well as within hue. And all the same principles apply. A tint is going to have, partially because it's just brighter, more light lumens come through the gel or through the color system. But also when you're thinking about it, a light blue against a dark blue also has a dominant recessive quality to it.
And even within two blues, you can imagine a blue that's really towards green versus a blue that has red in it. Which one would you guess is more dominant?
Blue and red.
I would guess probably the opposite. Yeah, I think that once as you move towards lavender, it gets less and less dominant. And as you move towards a kind of cyan, it will become more and more dominant.
So it's not like a warm, cool relationship.
It's not a warm, cool relationship. That's important. That you could have lights that are both warm and they'll still have a dominant recessive relationship. Or lights that are both cool and they'll have a dominant recessive relationship. So this is just this language of dominant recessive is a way of kind of helping you get out of trouble when you're lighting a scene. And you can say, how could this be more effective? How could I increase depth on stage? Oh, I need to push the background into a more recessive space. So I'm going to do that with color. So.
Wait, sorry, can I ask a question? So it's not,
Yes.
if you're trying to figure this out and like just looking at all the color and it's not like, you can't assume that it's like the warm, cool relationship. Do you just sort of have to like play with switching to know which is the dominant and the recessive?
If you're able to switch, with gels that's super hard. If you're programming color with LED lights, that's probably a little bit easier. And it's something that you'll get through practice. It's mostly what we want you to go away with today is this language of, that's a thing, that's a way of evaluating color. And I can use that now to help me create a better, more effective stage picture.
So I'm gonna put this out into the room really quickly, you just talk, because it seems like everyone's so into it. That hearing me talk for me is not what you need. So, doing a traditional reflection.
Why don't you come around, Kelly?
So what I thought is maybe you would like question and answer, because it seems like you have questions about certain things and that might be a more helpful use of your time. And then at the end, just a few minutes, just talk to the person next to you about how might you be able to use what we just got in this room in your space. And because I think that teacher connection is also really important. I'm going to turn it over to you, but keep them around.
Clifton's too modest to tell you that he wrote one of the best books about color. Not only is this really great for stage lighting, but the color theory is fantastic. So if you are interested in pursuing specifically color theory and related to lighting design for the stage, this book is the one you want.
Thank you. The book is written actually to be a kind of course. There's chapters and there's activities that go in every chapter, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So if you don't have side lights currently,
Yeah,
a room like this size, and you have some kind of, what I would call, I don't know what you would call them actually. I have a couple of spotlights
yeah,
and a couple of other lights that are less powerful.
yes.
What would your key lights be in that scenario?
If you can't move anything,
I can't move them to the sides.
yeah.
I can shift the angles. you know
And
what I mean?
where are the less powerful lights sitting?
Well, I have like 3 on each side of the classroom. It's basically a classroom like this size.
And they're all kind of frontal though?
Yeah,
Interesting.
I know, it's not good, right?
Yeah.
I could try, I don't have places to hang them on the sides currently. I think I'll
Sure.
get there, but I've got to do a show literally this week.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking what you would think.
Yeah, I would probably, if you were thinking about you needed 2 different colors, say.
Yeah,
For sure, use the most powerful lights for the recessive colors. So you
Okay.
get more powerful. Like if you need a blue, then I would put that in the more powerful light.
okay,
And if you need an amber or pink, then I put that in the less
in the last
powerful
part,
light.
okay.
Yeah, because our eye will just go to it right away.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
that makes
need so
sense.
much power behind it.
I see.
That might help you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if all you have is front light, then I would say you need to fight for
side,
moving
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
off to the sides.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you could erect a boom or a ladder or something to
Yeah.
attach just 2 lights on either side, your stage composition is just gonna pop so
Yeah.
much better, as you can see from the demo.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, don't discount the simplicity of this stuff in your lives, right? Like, this is an $8 light and
Right.
$15 dimmer. So I'm not saying you should spend your own money on something, but I'm just
No,
saying
we
it
have
could be
clip
super
lights
low
and
tech.
things, it's just, I don't know how I would get them, it's a very small department, it's like, I don't know how I would get them on and off, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Coordination with
Right,
the other stuff, but.
yeah.
I just had a thought about that, because I'm like, how could I put things up? But like, like a pipe and drape stand, where if you're not using it, it's like a full
Right.
pipe and drape. That like are the freestanding ones on the side that have like a weight on the bottom.
Yeah.
You could like pop it up on either side of your classroom just for the sake of like
Yeah.
clipping a light on either
Right.
side.
I don't have that, but I'm gonna get it. Like
Yeah.
I very much see the side light thing has been in the back of my mind. Is like, oh, I think those are really important, and now you've really solidified that.
cool.
So I'm making that, but it's just
Does your school have, you know those things that you put the giant Post-its on? Like
Yeah.
the metal
yeah.
outside?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Could
that
you
could
maybe
work.
use those?
Yeah, maybe.
You know,
Yeah.
we usually, so we walked in this morning and we didn't know what room we were gonna be in. And so we put the lights up overhead because the grid was here.
Yeah,
But normally we would have just asked for 3 ladders.
yeah. I have ladders, so I could definitely do that.
And then we just clip it right to the ladder.
Yeah.
And since you're in a classroom anyways, like,
Yeah,
It
I'm
actually
not
makes it
worried
nicer.
about. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
And we use floodlights in these bulbs, but you could get spots, that are more intense and more targeted, depending on how much space you have. So you could mix it up so that one is a fill, which is more general and softer, and the other one is a more directional, hotter, brighter light.
Thank you very much.
yeah, please.
I actually appreciate that you mentioned the bulbs. I was gonna ask light bulbs for these clip lights. What were these bulbs called? Are these the best ones? Other lights to use? Because I mean, over the years, we've gotten a handful of clip lights. I have like 10 in like a duffel bag
Yeah.
that I'm gonna use. So what would be like the right light bulbs to use?
So I think these are probably 75 watts or something.
Yeah, well, first of all, incandescent for sure.
That's the thing, not
That's-
LED.
Don't use the LEDs. There's two problems with that. One, they don't dim very well, although that technology is improving, so not the distant future, LEDs will do okay. But the other is that they don't emit a full spectrum of light. So you get into color problems with LEDs rapidly that you can't solve with just a little bit of equipment and clip lights. So the more you can stay in an incandescent world, the better off you're going to be. But that world is shrinking.
Yeah, it's getting harder.
Policy is making it harder and harder for us to do, and economics.
You said the ones that are in these clip lights are floodlights?
Yeah, we'll put a list.
Okay.
We'll put it in the
Great.
Thank you.
as a resource.
We're actually, my school is in the middle of like resolution A money and we're renovating the auditorium. Is there a resource for like, we're like starting from scratch with the lighting
Oh,
and like, you know, I don't even know where to begin like with the ask.
yeah, what the ask is.
Yeah. Well, there are a number of theater consultants that do high schools all over the city. We can also put in some resources for that. You know, there's a cost that goes with that, but you know, I think most lighting designers are very happy to help out, to tell you what, you know, is a basic system that will work. And there's so many factors that are in there, like who's going to maintain it, how does it get focused for each show, all of those things that, you know, are part of the consideration of what gets put in there and how much power there is and all of that. So, yeah, the theater consultants are really the best place to start, and they have expertise in that area.
Do you know if the architect's working with a consultant already?
We don't have an architect yet. We're still, we haven't met with the school construction authority yet.
Sure.
We were given like $900,000 in resolution A money. And so like we need a complete like audio AV rehaul in the space.
Yeah.
So we're, you know,
Roundabout Theater Company often does consultations like
Oh,
that.
really?
With their education department. They came and helped us.
Yeah, and I might ask Daryl Embry as well, because he has a lot of resources and he's also a lighting designer.
Yeah.
Daryl's a great resource.
Yeah, today.
He is
He
here
is
today.
here.
okay.
This is maybe a silly question.
No silly questions.
So I have like an old system, like an American DJ, like
Oh, yeah.
sliders, like board that I like have put away because as part of this art space grant a few years ago, I got like a black box like conversion, which is essentially like a flip form and two like 9-foot beams that have 3 like LED lights on them each.
Oh.
So now when I'm teaching like design, the older kids get to use like the ETC digital board
Yeah.
to work just the LEDs that are just in my classroom, like the downstairs is a
That's great.
different situation. But do the old systems talk to the new systems, or they're just, like, could I use the ETC board if I set up the old American DJ system with the same, like, dimmer pack? Is there any way to get those things to talk to each other?
They should.
Okay.
There's the electronics protocol is called DMX,
Mhm.
and that's standard across everybody's equipment.
Yeah, so I didn't have to wire it, it
Yeah.
doesn't talk wirelessly like
Right.
it does with the others.
Yeah.
In theory, it's totally possible. There may be some quirk in the system, but
Mhm.
yes, you should be able to, you know, couple them together.
Yeah. That's standard, you know, like I did a ballet in China, and, you know, everybody uses that all over the world. It's
Yeah.
amazing that we can disagree about everything, but DMX is this
DMX.
worldwide standard, yeah.
I was always very hesitant about adding gels to these, and now that I've seen that you can do this, I'm going to try to order. What do you recommend as like starter pack of like colors that might, like where to start, just to kind of have what's available?
Yeah, I'll write it down.
Thank you.
My similar thing, my spotlights keep burning out my gels.
Mm.
So if you have recommendations for stronger ones, that would be awesome.
Because that catalog is overwhelming.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah. So Roscoe Lux usually, that line is usually the most heat resistant,
Okay.
so Roscoe Lux.
Also, there is a thing called heat shield, which is just a clear plastic, but it works best when there's a little bit of air between it and the color. But it can also work to help just reduce the amount of heat that's hitting the color filter and give you a little bit more life so you can get that in spot. Or if it's in a theatrical equipment like this, like the Source 4s, which probably many of you have in your theaters, if you have them, have 2 slots, and so you put the heat shield in the back, put the color in the front, and that little bit of gap in the air reduces the temperature that's hitting the gel and makes it last longer.
Ladies and
We gotta-
gentlemen, we
we
are
gotta wrap it up.
actually at
Yeah,
time, and I want to make
maybe
sure
wait
you have
for the
enough
next
time if you
one.
need to use the facilities. They are over that way to your left, and you have enough time to get to your last session. Thank you so much.